Myself, Professor Pawar VK from Department of Geography, J.A.T Art, Science and Commerce College for Women, Malegaon. On behalf of this video presentation, I welcome you all. Dear students, now in this video, we will see the work of wind. Now, erosion by the wind. In hot and temperate deserts of the world, wind is the principal or the main agent of denudation. Scarcity of rainfall in arid and semi-arid regions coupled with absence of vegetation make the wind action powerful. Following map shows or the map which indicates the regions of powerful wind erosion in the world. High temperature, high rate of evaporation keep the soil dry and much unconsolidated so that wind blow can erode the soil easily. Now, when we see that in the desert areas of the world, this wind action is very powerful. The wind may carry thousands of dust particles. On the way, these particles get collided with each other and become smaller than their original size before action of wind. These sand particles abrade the earth's surface with moderate velocities. When the velocity is high, the particles are lifted in the air slightly away from the surface and get deposited in the form of dunes. When the wind velocity becomes weak, mechanism of wind action depends upon following factors. First is velocity of the wind. Second, force or intensity of wind. Third, surface relief of the region. Fourth, the size of the sand or dust particles. Number 5, direction of prevailing winds. Number 6, nature of weathering. Number 7, the nature of load. Now, we will see the mechanism of wind erosion. Wind action is also threefold, like river or moving ice or glaciers. It is erosion of the surface over which the wind blows. It carries the eroded and uneroded lighter particles or dust or sand of the desert, known as transportation of the material, and then it deposits the eroded material with small interruption on the way. Now, we will see that this wind action, how it takes place. Now, existing of the eroding, transportation and deposition. And now in eroding action or etching action, we will see that it is deflation and abrasion. In transportation, that is carrying and friction, and in deposition, that is piling up and accumulation. Now again, in etching or in eroding, lifting of the loose material in the air, and in abrasion, physical or mechanical friction and breakdown. Now in carrying, there is collision of particles with each other. In friction, contact in speed causes friction and erosion. Now in deposition, there is piling up, there is the dune formation, whereas in accumulation there is the loess deposition. The material of this particular sand is deposited in the form of loess. Now, as soon as the velocity of wind becomes slower, the carrying capacity is weakened so that deposition begins with slight obstruction on the way. It may be a small bush or irregular rock surface above the general level of the relief. Principal mechanism of wind erosion consists of 4 actions given below, that is the deflation, abrasion, attrition and saltation. Number 1, deflation. Deflation is lifting and carrying action of loose materials by the wind in the deserts. Fine materials or particles are lifted well above the ground. Coarse materials can be swept along the surface of the earth, while heavier materials like pebbles, boulders, and rock fragments can be rolled or jumped along the ground. Violent storms form great eddies and turbulence, so that wind becomes powerful agent of erosion, while the deflated materials acts as tool of wind erosion. Deflation is selective process. It lifts first fine and light particles, so that relatively heavier particles remain behind and get exposed for further erosion. Sheets of rock fragments in the desert are called as desert pavements. An analysis of deflated material by wind shows two categories. First is dust. The diameter of the dust is less than 0.06 millimeters. Sand, diameter more than 0.06 millimeter. Dust is carried in suspension with the mixture of clay, mud, or silt. It can be transported around 1500 kilometers from the parent or the region of origin. Second is abrasion. Abrasion is sand blast action of wind. Strong winds perform this function on large scale. The grains of sand, fragments of rock roll on or hit the exposed rock surfaces and carry out rubbing, scratching, polishing, grooving activities by one way or the other. Wind driven sand rises around 0.9 to 1 meter above the level. Most of the lifted sand is found about 0.5 meters high from the ground. Abrasion by wind produces variety of relief features in desert regions of the world. It steepens the slopes, faces of rocks, scratches the rock masses, creates dimples and hollows on the rock surface. It may cut down the bases of resting rocks. Number third, attrition. Attrition denotes coalescence of sand particles or rock particles among each other, so that the particles are subjected to force of blasting and heating with friction. Due to attrition, the particles of sand become smaller and smaller. Number 4, saltation. Saltation is the phenomena related to travel of sand particles in the air above the ground surface. Bouncing of particles into the air, rolling and jumping on each other brings coalition. Thus, sand particles in the air are created due to saltation. Once in the air, a particle is pushed forward by the wind, but at the same time, it is also pulled towards the ground. Thus, it follows parabolic path as shown. It may strike the ground at an angles between 10 degree to 16 degrees. Through the impact action, one particle falling on a smooth surface hits or displaces the other particle on the ground. Microscopically, impact action during saltation may compulse the dancing of all particles during strong currents of wind. Now, we will see the landforms of wind erosion or the relief features created by wind erosion.